my next question is, Chairman Turner, is it true there's an exception in this bill for members of Congress?
Right. So there is a section, there are actually several sections that came about as a result of the Donald Trump abuses that relate to political abuses of the process. There are not exceptions, there are notification requirements with respect to Congress, both if there's an individual that is significant to a political campaign, including a presidential campaign. Some of those are processes that we're putting in place now, and some relate to the court itself. Because of the concern of what came out of the Donald Trump campaign abuses, those notifications would give us the ability to ferret out political biases.
Was a member of your committee somehow involved in a inappropriate FISA targeting or search?
Yes.
And so is that why you created an exception for members of Congress or special treatment for members of Congress? I don't want to call it an exception.
Yeah, there's an exception. There's a notification requirement. Darren LaHood made public that he had been subject to inappropriate query. He was part of the process for drafting these reforms, and absolutely, even though he was subject to an inappropriate query, is adamantly opposed to the application of a warrant to search foreigners' data, such as we've been describing.
Well, of course, he wouldn't have any objection to it now that he's got an exception.
No, there's no exception.
Well, now that he's gets special notification.
There's no exception.
Is there a notification?
There's a notification to Congress, so that.
All right, we'll pause it here. They're going to play some word games.
I don't even understand what they're saying.
They're playing some word games here. So yeah, that was the hearing on the, and this is going to get, well, we'll get technical in a little bit, talking about the rule. But that was the hearing on basically bringing the warrantless mass surveillance program to the floor. And Massie is on the rules committee. That's the committee that's before. And they're talking about how they put in this amendment to say that if they're spying on members of Congress, then Congress will get a notification. Hey, looks like we accidentally spied on a member of Congress without a warrant. And now they're going back and forth. And so that guy who's being questioned is Mike Turner, the deep state chair of the House Intelligence Committee, same seat that Mike Rogers once had, where, of course, he is now single-handedly responsible for, first of all, destroying the warrant requirement that the Judiciary Committee had been working on this entire past year. And now actually, in fact, radically expanding the warrantless mass surveillance program that they're talking about, including that was weaponized against the Trump campaign. As he was just saying, a member of Congress's campaign, of course, Tucker Carlson, and, about 500 Americans every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So, wonder if they ever spied on me. I mean, not that I'm just, not that I'm some kind of marketing.
You didn't get notified?
You got to figure 500 queries a day, and we're in a swing state here. Surely someone's got to be, I mean, they're watching somebody, maybe that's just where maybe it's just how they find their next Gretchen Whitmer kidnappers for the 2024 election.
Maybe.
I mean, well, there's some way they got to profile people to figure out who the right patsies are. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Rest of Michigan Weekly live stream. Hi, Paula, we see you there in the chat.
Paula. Hi,
kind of
I haven't seen Paula in a long time or heard from her.
Yeah,
You're
it's
okay.
kind of a quiet stream tonight, I think. For some reason, whenever there's global conflict spiraling out of control, I feel somehow extra serene, and I spend my day, working on the house, doing some home improvement, kind of taking it easy, not that there's anything important happening in the world. But welcome everybody. You got a big election coming up in 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And Patty, you've been working your tail off to get Josh Powell elected, so kudos to you.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely getting my steps in, that's for sure. I've been on just not saying much. Okay. So we'll see. We'll see if it pays off.
Yeah, I mean, just get people's expectations too high. It was a very tough district. I mean, I think the Democrat won by like 20 plus points in 2022. But hey, weird things can happen in special elections, so we'll see.
Yeah.
I actually sending my voice to a campaign ad that was on Facebook, so we'll see how that goes. Apparently, someone was trying to use AI to generate a narration, and it just didn't sound authentic. So they had me do it. I was like, you should just pay somebody on Fiverr to do it, because you'll probably get some better voice talent that way. But you ever use Fiverr? It's this website Fiverr where you can just pay people, and typically pay people almost nothing to do things like record a voice acting thing or make a picture or do a video or something.
I never even heard of it.
Yeah, Fiverr with 2 R's, FIVERR.com. Great way to get cheapy stuff. Christine Chrislieb says, greetings from St. Louis, where I've moved, but still disappointed Michigan Republicans delegations votes on fire. Yes. Well, we're sorry you're gone, Christine, although I'm sure there's a lot of good reasons to be in Missouri rather than in Michigan, politically speaking. But yeah, we'll have to break down this entire thing. Do we want to? Let's watch a little bit more of this this back and forth between Thomas Massie and Mike Turner, because this is, well, we'll talk about Massie in a little bit, but Massie is someone who, let's just say, until Friday morning or maybe Thursday morning, I thought was one of the most hardcore opponents of the FISA mass surveillance program in Washington. But and we'll see what he says here. Here we go.
We have the ability to oversight.
Wouldn't it? Why wouldn't every American get a notification?
It's not a notification to the individual. It's a notification to Congress for our ability for oversight for political bias arising out of the Donald Trump case. What allowed them in part to do the Donald Trump abuses, which again were seeking a probable cause warrant, was the fact that they had secrecy and we didn't have the ability to have oversight. We want the ability to have oversight when we believe there's political biases.
I think the American
because of Trump, they keep invoking Trump.
A little concerned.
Did anybody get in trouble for spying on Trump?
For a member of Congress that didn't.
No, everyone got away with everything. Is what happened. But apparently now, next time it won't happen on Trump, but it could happen for every other American. Congress will get your protection. Presumably Trump will, I guess. Maybe. I don't really believe that, but that's what they're claiming.
Applied regular citizens.
It is a notification to Congress, not to the individual.
Well, why not notify you if somebody's running for school board and they're being searched?
There actually, Elise Stefanik has been a leader in this. There are provisions that are currently going into.
Actually, there's other things we're doing. That's not here today.
Political candidates also all coming out of the ability to try to prevent the type of abuses that we saw in the Donald Trump campaign, because absolutely we saw the worst of the intelligence community, and I think the worst of the FBI.
Yeah, Jason, that's what we're talking about right now. This is the hearing where they're going through this exemption for Congress here, that if they're spying on a congressional campaign, they'll notify Congress. If they're spying on a school board campaign, no. Then they get to keep their secrecy. That's what they're talking about right now. And by the way, that's a perfect example of politicians can make every kind of deflection in the world when it comes to someone's working on something in the legislature, and there's, nothing ever might come of it, but someone's working on something. Elise Stefanik, she's doing some kind of great work. Well, the House Judiciary Committee did great work for the past year and a half on FISA reforms, only to have every single one of their reforms destroyed by this very pig, Mike Turner. Here we go.
And it is absolutely imperative in these reforms that we make certain that we reform them so that can never happen again. And that's what we're doing in the FISA court reform.
Well, I'm glad it's happening for presidential candidates. Does the campaign get notified?
We do not have a requirement for the campaign to be notified. We have a requirement for Congress to be able to have the oversight as to what they're doing.
So as long as the campaign stays on the good side of Congress, they might be okay.
Yeah, they're not notifying Cornel West. They're not notifying RFK.
To every member of Congress, will I be notified?
It depends on what your role is. In judiciary, you very well
that's a no.
In a role where you're.
Yeah, it depends.
I don't know. I don't know how judiciary committee is going to be handling those notifications.
Will every member of Congress be notified?
No, every member of Congress will not be notified.
So it'll be like a few chairmen that get to know if a presidential campaign's being spied on?
Well, and that's not in this law. That's under current law. Under current law, there are increased notification requirements and limitations as to what they're able to do. Under this law, which absolutely needs to be passed, we have massive reforms that would prevent them to be able to do the
Adam Schiff will be
uses of
notified.
Donald Trump in the FISA court.
Right.
Okay, I started asking about the member of Congress, and you went to Donald Trump. I want to go back to the member of Congress. Who gets notified? First of all, I take objection with the fact that members of Congress get treated specially in this law over regular citizens. I think we all deserve protection under the Constitution.
Yeah, that's a fair
So
point.
I think I find it really interesting. We've carved out an exemption for members of Congress, but I'm supposed to be comforted by the fact that just a few chairmen will find out. Is that true? Like, who gets, if a member of Congress is targeted under FISA, who gets notified?
He doesn't know.
Who's he asking? Scroll behind
I want to
him.
be clear.
Yeah, he's just talking to his policy staff, or he has no idea what's in his own bill. It's whatever the deep state wanted to be in the bill.
Pathetic. Oh my God, so pathetic.
Yeah, it's so obscene too, because the Judiciary Committee had this bill. It's weird. They call them HR, which in Lansing, that's a resolution, but no, in Washington, HR is a bill, HRES is a resolution. Anyway, HR 6570 was I want to say, it was called like Protect America and End Warrantless Mass Surveillance, Restore Liberty and End Warrantless Mass Surveillance Act, or something like that. HR 6570 was this bill the Judiciary Committee spent the past year working on, which is which is the Judiciary's role, because it's a warrant requirement. But no, the House Intelligence Committee under Mike Turner sabotaged the entire thing. And it was Mike Johnson, the Speaker, who first sabotaged the negotiations at the end of last year, when House Speaker Mike Johnson stuck the 4-month extension of warrantless mass surveillance into the National Defense Authorization Act, which, again, not germane to the bill, but he just broke the rules to do it. They had 2/3 vote to suspend the rules and throw that in there anyway. It was all done without even the people who were involved in the NDAA deal. It was just Mike Johnson himself doing that. We'll talk about Mike Johnson more in a minute. And so now here we are with this quote-unquote compromise bill, which in actual fact did nothing but expand and renew the warrantless mass surveillance program. It now includes a provision that also says that business owners have to hand over records to the NSA. So these conscripted business owners, anyone that's got a Wi-Fi network, now has to give access to the national security state. So that's now in there. And they had this amendment on requiring them to get a warrant. Well, let's tell you what. I think we're about done with this clip. Let's end that. Let's talk about, because this goes on for another few minutes. A lot of going back and forth, and Massie asking these questions, and Mike Turner, the House Intelligence Committee chair, and just BSing him. But here's what happened this past Friday. Actually, before Friday was Thursday. So let me pull this up here. This is the rules. This is the first thing, is the Rules Committee. So I'm going to make this bigger. This is, I guess, as big as it goes. Without getting too technical for you guys, but since some people really do appreciate knowing how things work in Washington, in the House, they have this weird committee called the Rules Committee, which basically acts as a committee that decides what bills go forward and which ones don't. And the way they bring bills to the House floor is that a resolution goes through the Rules Committee. So in this case, they have a hearing on bringing this bill up under a rule. And so the bill, HR 7888, is RISA, which is this so-called compromise. There's no compromise. This is another one of these big fat lies that Mike Johnson and all these other House members say, oh, this is a compromise between the Judiciary Committee and the Intelligence Committee. No, it's not. They're completely mutually exclusive. The Judiciary Committee wanted to have a warrant requirement. They wanted to restore your liberty. The Intelligence Committee wanted to have no warrant requirement and also expand their warrantless surveillance program to take away more of your liberty. So there's no compromise on any of this stuff. But this is the smoke and mirrors they play. So they have this bill before the Rules Committee, and they have a rule, which I think was this one, Resolution 1125. And that's what it is. So here's what it says. 1125 was the bill that came up in the Rules Committee, and it was a structured rule. So there's different kinds of rules that they use to bring bills to the House floor. A open rule means any member can propose an amendment to the bill. A closed rule means members can't submit amendments to the bill. A structured rule means the Rules Committee decides what amendments can be brought up on consideration. So that's what this resolution was. So it was a structured rule for House HR 7888, which is a bill, and then there's also another bill that is attached to the resolution. This is also what happens frequently in the Rules Committee. Is they'll bring up multiple bills under one rule, which is significant because what ends up happening is that all the Democrats on the Rules Committee will vote no. Because even if they like one bill, they don't like another. So here were these various amendments being proposed for the fake Pfizer reform bill. And then here is the vote on the rule. Something fishy here. Burgess votes yes. All these other rhinos vote yes. But then Mr. Massie voted yes. Ralph Norman, who supports requiring a warrant from South Carolina, voted yes. Chip Roy, Mr. Conservative from Texas, voted yes. And how did the Democrats on the Rules Committee vote? 2 of them voted no as usual. 2 of them didn't vote, strangely. But look at that. For all of his bluster about this, Massie, Norman, and Roy all voted yes. Now think about this, folks. If the Democrats had done what they normally do and voted no, had Massie, Norman, and Roy voted no, they would have killed that bill. Massie voted yes on it. So Massie's explanation for this is, well, because if we brought up the rule, we could get a floor vote on the amendments, and at least then we get a roll call vote, et cetera, et cetera. But if not for the rule being passed, they might not have gotten a vote at all. Massie said, well, but maybe the speaker could have brought up under suspension of the rules. Well, but suspension takes 2/3. If Johnson had 2/3, they could have done that anyway. He probably would have done that anyway. And the bill didn't pass by 2/3. So he probably didn't have the votes. So what did Massie get for allowing this bill to go forward? You got a roll call on the amendment. What good's that, by the way? Let's look at what the roll call was on the amendment and on the actual vote. This is the rule. So here's the vote on the rule. Right for consideration of House Resolution, HR, I keep saying resolution, it's not, HR 7888, that's the bill, and HR 529, which is something entirely different. And how'd they vote? The Democrats all voted no, and 19 Republicans crossed over, and the rule got defeated. Who were those who voted no on the Republican side? Not many. Not many. You got Andy Biggs. This is like the conservatives. Andy Biggs. I don't know who this bishop is. There's a lot of bishops in the Congress for some reason. Lauren Boebert, though. We know Lauren Boebert, Matt Gaetz, Paul Gosar, Bob Good, Paulina Luna. Dwayne asks, is this why conservatives are so poor? Yeah. Matt Rosendale, Chip Roy managed to vote no this time on the rule. He voted for it in committee. Why did he vote for it in committee if only to vote no on the floor? I don't know. Same for Ralph Norman. Why'd you vote yes in committee just to vote no on the floor? So for one nice day, it looked like the rule got beat by 19 Republicans. But guess what? They just came back with another rule with only this bill on it. And the Democrats flipped. So the bill came back up again. And then we had this amendment. And this is the Biggs amendment. This is the amendment to require a dang warrant, which would not have been the everything we wanted out of the FISA reform, but the biggest part of it, make them get a warrant like the Constitution requires. That should be a no-brainer for any Republican. Oh, we're going to follow the Constitution. We need a warrant. But what was the vote? 212 to 212. One vote short. Which tells you something. Because it doesn't happen like that by accident. When that happens, it means there's a whip. And the whip in each party, his job is to count the noses and figure out how many people are voting yes and how many people are voting no. And they know the American people don't like warrantless mass surveillance. They know there's people like me, people like you guys. We're going to be mad when Republicans vote to continue a weaponized program used against us. But the deep state wants it. The deep state always gets their way in Washington for some strange reason. So they got exactly the number they needed to. And incidentally, Michigan, well, look at that. There's the vote on the amendment to require a warrant. Every Republican voted yes. Isn't that wonderful? Oh, look at this. Every Michigan Republican can say, look, I voted yes on the warrant requirement. Bergman, Heisinger, John James, Lisa McClain, John Molinar, even Tim Walberg voted yes. Well, that's so great. Our Republicans, they all voted yes. Now, they might have voted no if they needed just one more no vote to kill the amendment. I guess we'll never know. But, Dwayne, you are one more comment away from being removed from our chat here. Jason asks, Fourth Amendment. Yeah, what about it? What about that Fourth Amendment? Well, according to this vote on this amendment to support the Fourth Amendment, all of our Michigan Republican delegation were absolute champions of liberty. And as were the Democrats, except for Alyssa Slotkin and Haley Stevens, who both voted no. But then there was the actual vote on passage. Now the amendment's been defeated. And now there's a vote to renew and expand warrantless mass surveillance for another 2 years. Oh, I just realized I've been going all up and down this and I'm sharing the wrong tab. Here's the tab I was looking at, guys. I'm sorry. This is the vote. This is the vote on the amendment, the Biggs amendment to require a warrant. You can see all the Republicans here voted yes from Michigan. But then on the actual vote on passage, now the warrant requirement's been defeated. And here's the final vote on passage. Passed by less than 2/3. Shucks. If only it hadn't been a rules committee passing a rule, they might have not gotten this on the floor at all. And how did Michigan's Republican delegation vote now? Oh, look at that. Bergman voted yes. Heisinger voted yes. James voted yes. McClain voted yes. Molinar voted yes. Walberg voted yes. Every Michigan Republican now voted yes on final passage of the bill. So, you know what's going to happen when you call them out on this, right? They're going to say, well, I voted for the warrant requirement amendment. And hold on, someone's going away. Bye-bye. Sorry, Dwayne. Nice knowing you. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yeah. So these Republicans, they're going to all say, I voted for the amendment, but gosh darn it, it failed by one vote. And we couldn't possibly do without our lovely,
and that's the one you
FISA.
said the speaker voted for that one.
The speaker voted for everything. The speaker voted he voted for the amendment. He was the deciding vote on that amendment.
Right.
Which, now, as I said, if they needed one more person to vote no on that amendment, they'd have probably found one. But the funny thing is, the speaker usually doesn't vote at all.
Mm-hmm.
Usually the speakers just abstain. I mean, that's just customary. In this case, Mike Johnson cast the deciding vote as speaker. Now, Johnson apparently claims that he didn't wait till the last minute to vote. He voted early. He was going to vote for that sucker no matter what, which is, again, and we'll get to Mike Johnson in a second, because Johnson for years claimed that he was Mr. Fourth Amendment. He was complaining about mass surveillance in committee hearings, and he completely flip-flopped since he became speaker. But anyway, Yeah, Johnson voted for. First, he voted against the amendment. In other words, he voted against requiring a warrant. And then, even again, remember, this is not even customary for the speaker to vote on anything. But even though his vote wasn't even needed anymore, now on the final vote on the House floor, he voted yes, just to really rub it in, just to kick you right in the face. Yeah, Christine talks about the Glenn Greenwald video. Yeah, we'll talk about this in a moment. Yeah, because of a special briefing he received. Yeah, we'll come to Mike Johnson in one sec. But I want to finish off by talking about just this procedural stuff, because I know it's kind of in the weeds here, but it's important. Allegan News, good question. Should we be writing our Michigan reps that voted for the final bill? I would say, yeah.
What good would it do?
Yeah. I mean, other than to tell their staff that they done effed up, I would say tell your neighbors is what I would do. As I mentioned this in the email we sent out yesterday, I would say this: next time these people ask for your vote, or God forbid your money or volunteer time, say, hey, go call the FBI. Let them campaign for you, because you voted against our interest. But again, they're politicians. They're good at bamboozling people. They're going to say, well, I voted for the amendment, so obviously I did support reforming FISA. But again, well, so what? The amendment failed, and then you voted to extend it anyway. And then you get to what Allegan News says. Let's put up their names. I had, but I'll read them again. Happy to read them one more time. Bergman voted yes. Heisinger voted yes. John James voted yes. Lisa McClain voted yes. John Mulliner voted yes. Tim Walberg voted yes. That's the Michigan Republican delegation in Congress. By the way, Democrats also voted yes, except for Debbie Dingell and Rashida Tlaib, who both for the warrant requirement and against passage of the FISA renewal without any reforms. So ain't that hilarious? That Rashida Tlaib and Debbie Dingell were the only two members of Congress from Michigan to vote correctly on this. Of course, they have their own.
Dingell is representing us then, after all, in the 6th, huh?
Well, no, she's representing Dearborn right now. That's what she's representing.
I'm just kidding.
Because, I mean, only because they know that there's. Well, I think Rashida would have probably voted that way all the time, because, I mean, there's no question FISA has been used against the Muslim population for quite some time. And frankly, a lot of Republicans were way too okay with that. They didn't imagine it was going to be used against them.
Yeah.
When we were fighting the war on terror, they're like, well, we got to fight Islamic terrorists. And people like Glenn Greenwald were like, someday the shoe will be on the other foot. And here we are. Now you're the targets, you patriots. You're the targets of their warrantless mass
domestic terrorist. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Who do you think they're looking for? Really? Anyway, so that's how they voted. Now, as for Mike Johnson, as Christine mentioned, he actually addressed reporters who asked, why did he completely reverse his position on FISA? Because before he was speaker, he was hardcore opposed to all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about it in Judiciary Committee hearings. He was on the Judiciary Committee. They were involved in all this stuff. They were the ones pushing for these reforms. And as Christine points out, and as Glenn Greenwald pointed out, and as was on video, he basically just said, after I became speaker, they took me into this SCIF, which is their fancy, once they start using these fancy fucking words, SCIF, secure compartmentalized information facility. It's a fucking room where the deep state shows you things that you're not allowed to tell anybody about. And you're supposed to believe, because this is what Mike Johnson's official story is. Then they showed me these things I'd never seen before. Then I realized how important warrantless surveillance is. Now, Mike Johnson wants you to believe he's that freaking gullible. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. Now, when I worked for Kerry Bentivoglio when he was in Congress, he was at some secured meeting, and he came back and he was like, I was just at the secure meeting, and you wouldn't believe the things they were telling me. And I was like, no, I wouldn't believe the things they were telling you. He's like, I was like, why? What'd they tell you? He's like, if I told you, I'd have to kill you. And I was like, I just was rolling my eyes. So I was like, you actually believe this crap. And and I think it was Walter Jones who once he's passed away now, but he came back at some point after he'd served in Congress and said, I used to go to those classified briefings and think, man, this is if the American people only knew, it would be, like he's in Men in Black or something. And then he realized it's just an excuse for war propaganda, which, I mean, come on, guys, common sense. Okay. I mean, think about this. You go to this secure classified briefing. What is a classified briefing? A bunch of deep state officials come in. They show you things that you can't verify, and you leave. That's it. That's the whole thing. They just show you stuff. And can you believe any of it? Why would you? As if they, I made this joke in my email yesterday. They showed a Johnson and Fuji, the Kennedy assassination, that I'd never seen before. Yeah, that's the old Bill Hicks joke. When they was talking about when Bill Clinton was converted. There's a smoke-filled room, and they show you this angle of the Kennedy assassination you've never seen before. Any questions? And then Clinton just goes, "Just what my agenda is." Hey, could be that. Could be something they should have Mike Johnson himself, or his wife, or his kids, or something. Who knows? I think that's all a little far-fetched, though. Frankly, I think the most likely explanation is just he's just an effing douchebag who's a phony all along. That's my most Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is probably the best. Maybe they got some dirt on Johnson, or they're threatening him. But if the deep state was doing this stuff through threats alone, someone would say, screw it, I don't care about the threats, I'm going to speak out. That's not what's going on here. Either Johnson's really, really, really gullible, or he's just a complete phony. I think he's a complete phony. Speaking of phonies, right after this vote, guess where Mike Johnson went? He went off to Mar-a-Lago to have a press conference with Donald Trump. And what did Trump say about this? He said, "I don't like FISA." Good job, Donald. Way to stand up. Yes, Christine, that's correct. We can let us defeat John James, because maybe Jim Jordan would have done things differently. Maybe Jim Jordan was a little bit more principled than the untested, unproven Mike Johnson was. But, when Jim Jordan was voted on for speaker, just a handful of Republicans stopped him. One of those being John James. I remember when John James, you remember, Patty, when John James was elected speaker? And I think it was that very same day I said, you know what? If Johnson, we think he might be great, but if he turns out to be a complete hack and a phony, well, then everything's going to come back to John James.
Mm-hmm.
Sure enough. Alga News says Trump signed the last Pfizer deal and his election failures with. Yeah. I'll tell you what, guys, if there's anything I'm feeling right now besides betrayal, it's relief. It's relief. I don't have to worry about Congress anymore. I don't have to care about Republicans winning the U.S. Senate back, because I don't want another deep state shill like Mike Rogers. And if Mike Rogers wants to get elected, and if you want to get Mike Rogers elected, have at it. Go have fun. Mm-hmm. Not my cross to bear. Nor any of these Michigan Republicans. We can focus on holding rhinos accountable locally at the state level, maybe even winning back some seats from Democrats in those competitive districts. You know what? We got better things to do than worry about Washington, folks. I don't know. What do you think, Patty? You've been taking this in for a bit. It's frustrating.
I've always been about local or state stuff. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I try to encourage people to work on that stuff too, because that's where we can have the biggest impact, I think. So
yeah. Well, I mean, we're in a tough congressional district anyway. Debbie Dingell's going to be there for the rest of her life.
As long as she wants to, basically. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because yep, exactly. Allegan, let's win some Michigan seats back. Take the state back. Yep. That's the focus now, I think. I think, I started doing a scorecard of congressional votes, and long story short, it's not a very long scorecard, but it's enough just for me to throw up my hands. I'll put up on the screen. I know there's things that I've missed, things that I'd wanted to include from before I started compiling this, which was just the other day, but this is the vote. Jim Jordan for speaker. John James voted wrong. Santos expulsion. That's another thing to lay the feet on. People that voted yes on the George Santos expulsion because maybe that one vote from Santos might have been enough to get that FISA warrant requirement back.
Yeah, we have the slimmest majority, right? And we're voting people out.
Yeah, with the slimmest majority, we a couple more resignations, we might actually lose our majority in the U.S. House.
That's probably what they want, so they don't have. If it is a contested election, they don't want to have to deal with it.
Yeah, and there's Jack Bergman, John James again, Lisa McLean. Oh, I've made that one red, but obviously Democrats are going to vote for the expulsion. Of course they are, but the Republicans that voted yes are the ones that are telling. And then of course there's also the 752. We've talked about this before. The TikTok ban. That's not really a TikTok ban. That's actually the ending free speech on the internet bill, which they all voted yes on. The $1.2 trillion budget deal. They all voted yes, except for Jack Bergman, who Bergman's, coasting anyway. Talk is he's going to retire one of these days, maybe after the next term or something. Who knows? Because he's no spring chicken. So he doesn't really care what voters think, I assume. But there you go. That's Congress for you, folks. So, act locally, I guess, because who knows? Maybe one of these days, one of our beloved state reps is going to be a congressman one of these days. On Rumble, Casey says we can't give up on Congress. If Trump wins, Republicans in Congress will have more backbone. I don't know about that.
I don't know. They fought him the first 2 years. Right, we had
the first term. Mitch McConnell was no ally of Trump. They didn't find a backbone for him then.
No. Did they replace him yet? Did they
No.
figure out who's going to be Senate? Okay.
No, they're still jockeying. There's no the candidates who are running to replace him are no better. It's like John Thune, John Cornyn, John Barrasso, the Johns, all of whom are. Maybe Rick Scott is better than those. Maybe. I doubt it, frankly. But who knows? He's the other one that's running. So we'll see. Also on Rumble, Charlotte says, really doesn't make a difference if we lose the majority of the party sucks and vote with the Democrat clowns. Yeah, this is the uniparty, folks. And I talked about this on a stream I did a few days ago.
The uniparty one way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, look, it's not to say there's no distinction between Republicans and Democrats. I'm not trying to tell people to drop out and not care about politics. But I'm here to tell you, you can choose what your priorities are. And there's ways to be involved and engaged that are more productive than others. And going around telling people, we got to get Mike Rogers elected in the general election. We got to save the Republican majority in the House. No, thanks. You know what? These guys have decided whose support they needed to do that, and they don't want our support. Look how they voted. They can get the support they want from the FBI and the CIA and the NSA and their Lansing and their Washington lobbyists, Washington lobbyists, ones that they're calling all day, every day for money, and the NRCC and the NRSC. Let them worry about the majority. Okay? They're paid to worry about the majority. You're not. Worry about getting the good guys where you can, state, locally. Prima Facie says, hello from Australia. Mike Johnson has been a massive disappointment, and I'm not even American. Well, good day to you, Prima Facie. He's been a massive disappointment. There was real hope when he got elected that it might have been a corner that was turned, and it certainly wasn't. That, usually I say, Washington ate so-and-so for breakfast, but Johnson was in Washington for a bit. Michael Marla says there are 6 Michigan House Republicans. All 6 by their vote proved they are definitely not the guardians of our constitutional republic. Yep. Yes, they are. And I'm not going to belabor this because I was talking about this the other day. The more hassle you make it for them in their districts, the more they might not vote the wrong way next time. So screw them, Do things where you can. Do things where you can help, locally. And maybe at the state level. Maybe, depending on who your state rep is. Some of them are not worth defending. Mark says we're awesome. Thank you, Mark. That's very kind of you. By the way, that reminds me, I forgot. Somebody sent me this the other day. Look at this. Framed copy of the Declaration of Independence. Isn't this cool?
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I have to find a place on my wall to hang it, but Very nice. I know that that person wants recognition, so I'm not going to say who gave it to me, but thank you so much. This is very, very generous. I'll tell you, reading through this list of grievances, though, things that we fought the king over. Boy.
Yeah, right. We're back where we started.
Yeah. I think even further.
Worse, yeah.
I mean, our taxes are a lot higher now.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's it, 40 minutes? I don't know. Do we want to talk about the Middle East stuff? Probably not. It just happened, and there's a lot of conflicting information about.
Yeah, let it play out. See, give it some time to see what comes out.
Let's see what the actual next step is, because apparently Israel's saying they're going to retaliate over the retaliation, but I don't know. I'm hearing very different things. One side is saying it was a total failure and Israel defeated almost every single missile and drone that went through. Only a couple of them went through, but it didn't cause all that much damage. But then the other side is saying, well, yeah, but those things that was what the whole point was, is they overwhelmed the air defenses, and then the ballistic missiles went through and hit certain targets just to show that they could. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what, Yeah, Allegan News says fog of war very thick. Yeah. Let's see where this goes. The first thing that started this all was 2 weeks ago when Israel bombed the Iranian embassy in Damascus, and it took 2 weeks for any other thing to happen. So we'll see. From what I'm hearing from Ukraine, where the situation is completely horrible, where Ukraine is just being annihilated, that maybe America does not want to get into another ugly war, but who knows? We'll see where things go in the next week or so, I suppose. I don't know. Other than that, I have been doing some improvements on the Rescue Mission website, which some of them are very subtle, but like the login page now loads a lot more quickly. But one thing is I built a tool to make it so that's way easier for me to install voter files, which might seem like nothing to you guys. But for those who don't know, if you go to rescuemichigan.com, you can register and you can order the file of all of your voters in your precinct, including all kinds of micro-targeting information and their party affiliation, their phone numbers, issue scores, all kinds of donor information, all kinds of useful stuff. And now I'll be able to install those a lot more quickly and easily. So, and they also now have data from the 2022 elections, all that kind of good stuff. So if you haven't already, you should get your precinct voter file, go out and knock on some doors. I just scheduled some door-to-door dates for the next couple of weeks because now's the time, guys. Go out and talk to your neighbors.
Yeah.
Allegan News says war pays the Congress critters. Yeah, I mean, it's not the only thing that pays them, but yeah, that is. I mean, there's some reason why the deep state always wins. I tell you, it's either bribery, blackmail, or what? I don't know.
Feels helpless at times, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Charlotte Cosmic says Mike Rogers is a jackal. World War III going down. Get ready for a draft. The politicians and their kids go first. Don't count on it. I would not serve Biden for nothing in this world. He's a pedo criminal. Couldn't agree more. Yeah. We will see where things go. But I mean, here's my hot take on the Israel and Iran thing. I know we just said we're going to not talk about that just yet, but every analyst has been saying for a long time, the agenda is to get Iran into a war, to get the U.S. into a war. That's what Israel wants. This was an obvious trap. Well, if it was an obvious trap, obviously Iran knew it was an obvious trap. So either they just walked into the trap or they know something. They know they're ready for whatever's going to come. And Iran probably talks to Russia now and again. Probably talks to China now and again too. Just saying. So maybe they're a bunch of idiots, but I wouldn't count on it. I would count on Joe Biden's administration being a bunch of idiots. That is something you can take to the bank. So I guess we'll see where things go. Allegan News says MIGOP and GOP should be buying an. Yes, they should. That's a good point, Allegan News. Thank you. Of course, there's always some kind of special interest deal that goes on with those, and they've had various vendors for this. It used to be, what was it called? Is it Sidekick the one we use now? Before that, it was something else.
Sidekick is a front end, I think, for GOP data center.
Yeah, GOP data center used to be called the voter vault. That was their voter file, which is always very bad. And then, yes, there was Sidekick, and before that was called Advantage, I think it was. And it's always some consultants getting rich from these deals. Yeah, unfortunately, our experience has been that the party's data is some of the worst because their consultants, turns out, they sometimes they just make shit up. I worked in a campaign where we paid a company to do a survey. It was only because I audited the results that I saw the results were BS. Like, we looked through the results of the poll and we looked to see who were our campaign volunteers who were polled. And we saw people that we knew for a fact would never in a million years tell anybody they were pro-abortion, marked down as being pro-aborts on the poll. And we called them up. It's like, was there anybody in your household that would have said they were pro-abortion? No. Went back to the guy that we paid to do the survey. Hey, buddy, the people that you say you've called are telling us that they were never called and didn't give these answers. Oh my gosh, the call center I subcontracted they've never seen this before in all my years of polling and yada, yada, yada. This stuff happens all the time, guys. And I'll tell you, because I work in a campaign, I made dang sure that we did our due diligence and audited the results of the vendors, because vendors lie all the time. Most campaigns never do the due diligence and their data is crap. And that's the way that goes. Jay Michaud says, I try to get the voter ballot choices from the presidential primary. Both my county clerk and Bureau of Elections, the data does not exist. Apparently, yes. I've heard that for the first time in this past election, Jocelyn Benson is not disclosing the results of the presidential primary, other than, of course, I'm sure, to herself and her own friends. Yeah, we know the data exists because they were required to record it. How do you get this data for your voter records? File a lawsuit and win. It's the only way to do it. Benson has claimed that she unilaterally has this authority to not make that information public. Alganusa is stuck in the Indian call centers. No, they weren't Indian call centers, but doesn't matter. It turns out American companies lie too, by the way, guys. Dwayne says, everybody walks in my neighborhood, so I spend the day in my driveway talking politics. That's awesome. Good. Yeah, the more talking, the better. That was one of the side items of the COVID agenda, was stopping people from talking to each other in person in the real world. Get out there and talk more. All right, guys, I am pretty much out of things to talk about tonight. I have been busy doing my home improvement thing lately, but I'm sure we'll have more to talk about during the week. So I think we might call it a stream. Charlie Cosmic on Rumble says no vote in 2024 and pedo Biden is king for first. Yeah, guys, I'm not saying don't vote. I'm not saying you shouldn't vote for Donald Trump. I'm saying, though, you have to have some standards. There has to be at some point where you say, I'm not going to vote for, because if you're, and we all know people like this, people in my family will always vote Democrat no matter what the candidates are or what the issues are. Some people always vote Republican no matter who the candidates are or what the issues are. And when everyone votes like that, the politicians just go, oh, well, then my votes don't matter, because all they care about is the letter next to my name. So at some point, you got to say this is too much. And I think warrantless mass surveillance is a pretty good hill to die on, personally. I mean, to me, that's betraying the Constitution. Like I say, if you want to get yourself reelected after you vote like that, go beg the FBI to knock on doors for you.
And it's all under the guise of what? For your safety.
Yeah, for your safety.
They're doing it for our safety, just like COVID, just like every rights violation they do. It's like, well, we're just keeping you safe.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
you know.
If people think they're keeping us safe, keeping our border open, starting world wars, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Republicans' answer to Joe Biden on the Middle East is we should have been more permissive towards Israel. As if Joe Biden didn't give a blank check for every single thing they've been doing.
People on Twitter were blaming Trump for that because he pulled out of the Iran stuff.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so stupid.
Mm-hmm. That's what they were trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever. All right, guys. I think that'll do it for us for tonight. We will, I'm sure, have another stream at some point during the week. And enjoy the fine weather. Knock on some doors. Talk to some neighbors.
Yeah.
And there will be more petitions to come. Recruit some precinct delegates. We'll be talking more about the Karamo faction because they're not done. Remember that deadline's coming up soon too. File become a precinct delegate. Algan News says safety is the excuse for all violations of rights. Yeah. Yep.
Sure is.
I completely believe in free speech, but, and you know the next part of that sentence is going to be why I support censorship for your own best interest, of course. It always is. All right, guys, that's it for us tonight. Oh, Emma says one more comment. Sorry if this was discussed, but I anticipate Tuesday's special election to go. I don't know. What do you think, Patty? Special election?
I don't know. I mean, the team worked hard, so I guess we'll see if it pays off. I really don't know what to say.
I'll tell you what. The HRCC, the House Republican Campaign Committee, didn't put money into those races. What does that tell you? They didn't believe in their own party. So we'll see how it goes.
Our side?
Hope for the best. Yeah, the House Republican Campaign
I heard
Committee
something different earlier tonight, but maybe not.
Last I heard, they spent like barely anything. We'll see. Could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. We'll see more in the aftermath once all the numbers come out.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it should be said that well, here, let me pull it up, just so you guys are aware here. Hold on, let me pull this up here. The results of the election in 2022 in those seats, which you can kind of look at empirically. So the 25th House District, where I'm already past it. Kevin Coleman won that seat by like 24.6 percentage points. That's a big number. It's a big number. And in the, why is this? Apparently I'm not able to just page down. In the Warren district, it was 2-1 for the Democrat. So, I mean, barring anything extraordinary, these are safe Democrat seats normally. Paula says, yeah, but Scott didn't campaign at all. And that's talking about what in the regular election. Yeah, that's what you must have meant in the election in the last fall.
Yeah, maybe.
Even still, the margin. Yeah, the margin typically that you can win or lose based upon campaigning is like 10 percentage points or something. So we'll see. We'll see. I certainly hope they win. And I certainly salute everybody that's working their tails off to get the best possible result. Because ultimately, even if they don't win outright, you know, the work that they've all done knocking on doors and identifying voters, you know, starts to move the needle in a way that it can be moved further every election cycle. Democrats don't not campaign in Republican seats, that's for sure, because seats change over time. So, all right, guys, maybe we'll do a stream on Tuesday night. We'll see. As always, thanks for all that you do for liberty. And until then, peace.